My name's Corey, and today we're making this pool cue rack. So for this project, I used some rough sawn walnut I had laying around to make a rack to store my pool cues, table brush, chalk, and other accessories. I started by cutting a few pieces to rough length on the miter saw. Then used the jointer to smooth one face and one edge. After a few passes, the face was perfectly flat, so I brought it over to the thickness planer and planed the opposite face until the overall thickness was about 7/8 of an inch thick. At the table saw, I ripped the pieces down to about 2.5 inches, which will be the overall depth of the rack once it's complete. Back to the miter saw, I cut each piece to its final length, accounting for the extra length required for the dados. This rack will have a center section with a few shelves, and on one of the shelves I will be adding 2 indentations to hold practice cue balls. I drilled 2 holes about 3/8 of an inch deep using a 1-inch wide Forstner bit. To clean up the bottom of the hole, I'll be adding a thin layer of leather later. Still at the drill press, I cut 1-inch holes into the top piece that will accept the pool cues. At the table saw, I cut out the openings so that the pool cues will rest nicely within the fingers. The bottom piece will also have corresponding indentations where the bottom of the pool cues will sit. I spaced these out closer to the front edge so that the pool cues will lean slightly towards the wall. To give this rack a bit of dimension, I decided to add a small curved section all the way down the middle shelves, along with the 2 top pieces that accept the pool cues. After marking a slight curve with a flexible ruler, I cut them out on the bandsaw. Then use the belt sander clamped down to my workbench to sand the curve smooth. With the router, I used the keyhole bit to cut 4 keyholes into the back of the outer pieces, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. This will allow me to hang it on the wall without any visible screws or brackets. Once that was done, I switched to a straight bit to cut the dados for each shelf. I didn't have the correct size router bit, so each dado was done in 2 passes, moving the fence slightly on the second pass. With all the pieces cut to their final length and all the dados cut, I turned to the router table to add a small 1/8 inch roundover to all the front edges. With the random orbit sander, I sanded each piece before gluing it up, working my way up from 60 grit all the way up to 220 grit. Once everything was sanded, I could start gluing it up. I started by gluing the center section together and letting that dry. Once dry, I could add the left and right pieces and the top and bottom pieces to complete the glue up. The next day, the glue was dry, and after another quick sanding to get rid of any glue squeeze out, I applied the finish. I used 2 coats of walnut Danish oil, then finished it off with 2 coats of wipe-on polyurethane for protection. Once the poly was dry, I sanded everything down with 2000 grit sandpaper just to get rid of any small bumps in the finish. With the woodworking part complete, I found a piece of scrap leather and started cutting out some circles that would fit in the indentations for the practice cue balls and the bottom of the pool cues. I added a little wood glue to the back side of the leather pieces and pushed them in place. To hang the rack on the wall, I transferred the location of the 4 keyholes onto the wall, drilled the holes into the drywall, and hammered in some drywall anchors. I screwed in 4 screws, making sure they protruded about a 1/4 inch, then hung the unit. I think it came out pretty good. The pool cues lean slightly towards the wall and the shelves have enough space for all of my accessories. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for similar woodworking projects.